Yay. Um, I always press record and then I have this moment. I think it's this moment where I'm like, oh, how am I going to start this? How am I going to introduce this person? Here's what a moment that just popped into my head. I shared something on social media yesterday that was like on my personal Facebook page that was like, if you've been meaning to unfriend me and you haven't had the courage, just send me a message like this. And it was like this cheesy screenshot and I will swiftly unfriend you. There's a point to this because someone commented like, well, why are you friends with them in the first place? And it was someone who doesn't use social media for like networking, and they're not in a million coaching programs, and they're not in a million different, right?
Right.
And so my answer was, I love social media for meeting new people. And my point of this story is that's how we met. Like, social media is a beautiful place to meet new people. And sometimes you meet them and you connect, and then later you swiftly unfriend. But we are swiftly jumping into a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the value. I mean, we're actually not too far away from each other, Massachusetts and New York, but we never would have met if it weren't for social media. And I love that you can share with a whole different community the work that you do. So that was my really ADHD crazy off tangent story.
I totally followed it. On the same page.
Why don't you introduce yourself and your work, and then we'll have a conversation about how, all my thoughts and questions and how it can integrate into a community space like the one I'm creating.
Let's do it. So my name is Rachel Gofman. I am a pelvic pain coach and a pelvic health physical therapist. The work I really do is help women or humans with uteruses and vaginas, who are experiencing pelvic pain of really all kinds, particularly chronic pelvic pain, meaning they've had pain for more than 6 months. Really gone through the medical merry-go-round, gotten all the testing done, everything has been checked out, and they've been told, you have this chronic condition, sorry, like, good luck. Or here are all these really invasive medical options that are really only going to give you possibly temporary relief. Can't guarantee it. It's really expensive. Let me know.
Yay, sign me up.
Sign me up. And so the reason why I work with individuals is because I was this person. So I developed chronic pelvic pain about, how long ago now? 6 years ago. Came out of the blue, was really terrified. Went through the medical system as a patient, not yet a provider, and it was awful, effectively. The allopathic medical world really has a very poor understanding of chronic pain, especially chronic pelvic pain. And so what I do with my clients is I help them understand pain from a holistic mind, body, whole person perspective, and guide them to really live a full and embodied life while they are healing, and guide them towards like the healing path. So that is the work that I do with my clients.
I wrote down so many things. First of all, is medical merry-go-round a hashtag or something? Because it needs to be.
Not that I'm aware of. I've used that phrase so often. I have no idea if I made it up or not at this point.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm pretty sure I started saying that before so-and-so, but what, it doesn't
I
matter.
don't even know anymore. Yeah.
Anyway, medical merry-go-round, that is, wow.
Yeah.
So I started recording these YouTube chats because I opened a membership where I want a place that we can use general life coaching tools, be able to coach ourselves and work with our own nervous systems and our own minds in order to navigate the things that pop up in our life. And you said 6 years ago, my abortion was 6 years ago. That's how I landed in that work.
Yeah.
I posted a funny Instagram remix today that was like, when the universe tries to teach you a lesson and you don't learn it, and then it just slams you with it. And I was like, that was my abortion. But
That
anyway,
pelvic pain. Same.
Same. We're gonna have to link to that video.
Yeah.
But Yeah, we've both been on this journey for about 6 years, but it's like, if it wasn't pelvic pain, if it wasn't abortion, like people have so many things they go through, and then they get sent through the medical merry-go-round because women's bodies are not very well researched. They're
Nope.
not very well cared for. They're
Nope.
not treated as whole systems. They're treated as like compartments, right? It's like, oh, what's happening with your uterus? Like, let's just look at the uterus instead of let's look at all the other parts of your life, social, emotional, spiritual, like all of it. So yeah, we get slammed with these conditions, and then how do we navigate them? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop talking for a second.
I fully agree. That is like my soapbox
Yeah.
issue, is like the silos of medicine, right? That not only are we just a body, which we're not, right? But that we're a body part. And that is like the most untrue statement and the most unhelpful framework when
Yeah.
working with any symptoms, especially persistent symptoms that we know have an underlying nervous system component, if not cause, right? So for those of us who have been really only looking in one place, which is like traditional medical care, many of us have not found the answers we've been looking for.
Yeah.
And so it can be extremely frustrating and invalidating, right? And the alternative is you're told it's all in your head, which is also incredibly invalidating and untrue, right?
But we also start to believe it.
Well, because nothing is wrong with us, right? So if nothing is
Because
wrong
we
with
need proof that nothing is wrong with us, even though the proof is that our body is telling us something is wrong with us.
then yes,
Wrong,
and
right?
something might be wrong, right? But it might not be where we're feeling the symptoms. And that's like the bigger discussion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um,
Carry down that path for a second.
yeah.
What's an
So
example of that? Like something might be wrong with us, but it's not where we're feeling the symptoms.
there's some fun facts. So we can feel emotional pain physically.
Yeah.
Many of us are not very in tune with our feelings. Many of us are not very aware of what we're feeling because we're told to suppress them, and it's inappropriate to be emotional and like have feelings. So many of us don't have much access to them.
Yeah.
And you suppress emotions enough, they can show up physically. There's a ton of research on low back pain that effectively tells us a lot of chronic low back pain has a lot to do with emotional suppression. And
Wait, did we not meet through this course with Melissa Tears and Simone Tool right now? Okay. Oh my God, I'm having a moment.
Tell me.
So we met through this course that we just started. And God, holy tangent. And as soon as we started the course, I have had like, so that was beginning of January. I have had such incredible like pelvic, like hip pain. And I'm pretty sure that it's just like a massive release of emotions.
Yeah.
And it's slowly changing and moving. But yeah, whatever you said was just like, yep, more proof that that's what's happening.
Certainly could be, right? And like with bodies, it's really hard, right? Because our first thought is something is wrong with my physiology, right? And we have to check it out, right? My first step with anyone I ever talk to is, did you go to the doctor, right? And by the time they get to me, they have, right? I'm not their first step, right? So they got to the doctor, got everything checked out, whether it's orthopedic or infectious like symptoms or anything like that. They've gone to the doctor and been told all clear, right? But their pain persists. Then we have the broader discussion, right? But for something like, for example, I now know myself quite well, and I've had, looking back in my life, so many iterations of effectively the same thing, which is nervous system dysregulation kind of culminating in severe physical symptoms. Whether it was things like IBS, or I also had 3 years of chronic debilitating low back pain. I had
That
one night.
was what you brought up, the low back pain. That was when I went off on my tangent, because I was
Yeah,
like, that's such a common one. So much gets stored yeah. Okay.
yeah, right. Like they always
Mhm.
say, like the issues are in the tissues, right?
I've never
That
heard that either. I love
but
it.
the thing is, right, nothing is separate, right? Our nervous system is everywhere. So the
Mhm.
idea of our emotions impacting our physiology is like actually quite logical. It's just like the way that medicine has been constructed in the Western medical model is like the brain is separate from the body. This is true of psychiatry as well, right? Like they're like, oh, it's just your brain. It's like, well, no, it's everything, right? So it's like both sides are not speaking to one another, and both could really benefit from
Mhm.
the discussion together. But the missing component overall is the nervous system and what's happening there.
Yeah.
And we can talk about trauma too, which is a big component of all this. Um, yeah, I forgot your question.
I don't know. I don't have questions. I just open these conversations because I feel like we're so gonna land somewhere. And sometimes I ask a question and the listener's probably like, what's the answer to that question? It's like, okay, well, that's your invitation to go keep exploring.
Totally.
So there's no, I don't know my question either. But I do have a question now.
Sure.
Um, uh, as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, we get to this place. I know this because I'm one of those people who's like, oh, I'm experiencing this pain. It's my fault
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't process some kind of trauma I had, or I didn't feel my emotions, or I didn't, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
just know, like, I have learned what to do with those voices in my head, but not most people have not. So there's that like defensive resistance place that's like, don't tell me this pain is my because I didn't do something.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do all the work? Like they
Yeah,
were the abuser and now I have to do more work to release the pain, like that kind of voice.
totally. I mean, I was literally that person too. I was very angry and very upset and felt very gaslit by the suggestion that like I could do anything to really help myself because I'm like the physical problem, like fix it. Right. And I think in general, we're often in the way that medical stuff is kind of configured, really educated to outsource our treatment and our healing to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knows you like you do. No one knows how to help yourself like you do. Now, can we have support and people who can guide us? Absolutely. Right. But end of the day, one of my biggest things I like to tell clients is you're the boss of you and you're the driver here.
Yeah.
Right. I will like help you like bring things in and help you like light a flashlight to like show you where you're going, but I can't walk the path for you. Right.
Yeah.
And looking at it as from more like an empowered place rather than like a victim place. And first we have to process the grief, right? Because there is grief in what has happened to us, whether it's just the pain itself, whether it's a traumatic incident that then kind of led us into a painful experience. There is so much there that we get to feel, right? And self-compassion always, right? It is never helpful to blame ourselves and be mad at ourselves. We didn't choose this. No one ever chooses this. We didn't do this to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Our body and brain has been trying to protect us. Pain is protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we want to show ourselves slowly that we're actually safe.
Yeah.
And one of the safest things we can do for ourselves is be compassionate to ourselves.
I got on with my coach yesterday
Mm-hmm.
and she got to this place where she like could see that I was not being compassionate with myself.
Yeah.
And I got so like I put up a wall. I'm like, that is not the problem here. I mean, I didn't really, but in my way.
Yeah.
Um, and then it took like maybe 5 sentences, and I was like, damn it, she's right. I'm not being compassionate with myself. And that is the solution here.
And most of us who end up having what I call mind body symptoms, which
Yeah.
most humans have, but those who tend to have more of them tend to have are really hard on themselves, are like perfectionistic, are really like people pleasing, right? Not really self protective, like verbally, like not great with boundaries, and people who are really, really hard on themselves. And
Yeah.
so much of that work is like learning to befriend yourself and be kind to yourself and treat yourself like you would your best friend, right? Because you're in it for life, you know?
Yep. That was exactly where we landed after the compassion piece was like, um, I remember realizing how high my expectations are, like on other people, on myself, like mostly on myself.
Yeah.
And like doing the work around that and then being like, okay, I get that about myself now. I don't have to look at it anymore. And then in this coaching session yesterday, I was like, oh, we haven't been here for a while. My expectations of myself are like, and how can I have compassion from that place where I'm expecting myself to be some kind of superhero anyway? Like everything you're saying is just so spot on.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and what you're saying as far as like kind of finding yourself back in that same kind of headspace, being like, oh God, we're here again, right? And the aim there is to be kind to yourself when you notice that, right? Like I learn this all the time again and again, right? Like none of us like get it.
Exactly.
They're like, I got this. I'm never thinking that thought again.
Yeah.
No, I still have the same thoughts a million times. I'm now much faster at not berating myself for having them. Right?
Exactly.
That's really the goal. Like we're not going for perfection. No one ever eliminates these thoughts or patterns. It's like how quickly can we like realize we're there and be like, huh, okay, doing that thing again. Let's be kind to ourselves instead. Right?
Totally. Totally.
That's like the best I've gotten to so far. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. I wrote these words, pain is protection.
mm,
Um, I want to talk about that,
yeah.
but I also am realizing we never totally defined, like people hear pelvic pain and they're like, what is that? Like, what are you even talking about when you like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
So can we step back for a sec, which we probably should have done at the very beginning and been like, what is pelvic pain? Like what might someone might be like, well, I have this pain, I have that pain. Is that pelvic pain? Like what is in the category of pelvic pain?
Let's talk about it. So I'll talk about symptoms and then kind of like some diagnoses you may have received as someone with pelvic pain. Okay.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
So it could be things like symptoms of chronic UTIs, but not actually having positive infections.
Oh,
It could
that
be
happened to me once.
it could be chronic infections,
Mm-hmm.
not really understanding underlying cause and kind of keep getting it and getting it and getting it and getting it.
Okay.
It could be chronic vulvar burning. It
Mm,
could be pain with intercourse. It
okay.
could be endometriosis or post-operative endometriosis. So you get the excision, but still have pain and the lesions have been removed.
Okay.
It could be SI joint pain, which is kind of the joint between like your lumbar spine and pelvis. Yeah, kind of what you were describing earlier. That's what it sounds like. So those are kind of the main categories of things. Really, any post-surgical. I have some patients or I have some clients who have had like vein surgeries. Like there have been kind of distended veins in their pelvis that has been causing pain. They have gotten those like will fix with a laser. Should have been feeling better. The
Yeah.
pain remains.
Yeah.
Genital
Okay.
neuralgia is a big one that kind of can be pain anywhere in the like external perineum, vulva region, could be clitoral pain. Um,
That's my kid going to school. It's a snow day.
that's okay. So really we're talking about like vulva perineum and like below the belly button. Belly
Yeah.
button to like vulva area.
Okay. All right. And when you define yourself as a pelvic pain physical therapist, am I right that that's what you
Pelvic
said?
health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So pelvic health physical therapist. Please explain that. Like, are we talking like, give me some exercises to do? Are we talking like you're getting up inside me and massaging things that I don't know existed? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening?
So
I've had both, by the way.
sure.
So
Yeah, happy to explain it. So what I do in my coaching context is obviously different than I do in my pelvic PT context.
Totally.
My medical knowledge and understanding to the coaching as well, because I don't lose those skills or that medical screening, right?
Yeah.
But pelvic PT specifically, we are working on the tissues themselves. Now, even as a pelvic PT in the clinic, I'm still looking at things from a nervous system perspective. I'm still educating the patient on how all that works, how pain works, and essentially teaching the body safety with touch, right? So a lot of this is desensitization. And when we have pain for a long period of time, basically, our brain gets really, really good at attending to stimuli in that area and making it feel really big and important, right? So a lot of the like contact would be doing is having somebody attend to that with some safe touch and calm their nervous system as we're doing that, right?
Wow.
So traditionally in pelvic PT, there's like dilators and pelvic wands and things to use internally to like the old methodology was to stretch the tissues. I hate that. I don't stretch anything. Do I use dilators with patients? Totally. But we use it from a place of getting the body to open to something rather than pushing something in to force things to open. So
yeah, is it more like stimulate and awaken the tissues?
I don't think of them as dead. So
I love that.
it's
Okay.
I don't think that they're not there. Can it be to help create some more like blood flow to the area and get some more like tissue movement? Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that like these tissues are like totally alive. They just are how their sensitivity has shifted and changed with chronic pain.
Okay.
Trying to retrain the understanding of what's happening with sensation. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, like, I guess it's all words are funny because, like, for me, it's like, I live a very alive life, and then I go skiing and I awaken myself even more. So, I mean, it's all like kind of like I wasn't dead. I just like was stimulated by the activity of skiing, you know, like, but again, words are words. So I love the way you said that. Like, I don't think of the tissues as dead, and we shouldn't. Like, that's
I think of it as like retraining sensation. Like these have been this this over amplification of negative stimuli, like things, everything feels more dangerous, and let's create more sensation and experience of safety. That's from the manual side of things. And yes, we do give exercises, right? So we're now getting into like the idea of the pelvic floor tends to be overactive when we have pelvic pain, not for everybody, but for most patients. And so we look at down training, or essentially getting the nervous system to lower the amplification.
Yeah, I always go to like metaphors. So I'm imagining like your kid is having a tantrum, right? They're like overactive, and like your gentle touch sometimes.
Sometimes,
like that safe touch calms the tissue down, calms the kid down.
Yes, there's also something I find, that's a great example. There's also something I find that many people who have had pelvic pain, specifically things more like vulvodynia, neuralgia, vaginismus, things of like the actual vulva itself. People often have this thought, almost everyone that I've talked to had this thought that something is wrong with my vulva, something is wrong with my vagina, something is structurally wrong, right? And a lot of the work that we end up doing is showing them that it's not. Right? There's so much fear around the vulva. I think there's not enough education around the variety of vulvas humans have, how they can look different and feel different, and how the textures can be different. And there's a lot of fear around their own anatomy. And so much of what we do also is like show them that things are structurally sound. Like things look good, tissue looks healthy. And if it doesn't, right, say there's some like redness or irritation, that doesn't mean there's an infection or that it's permanent, right? Our nervous systems can create inflammation for all kinds of reasons, right? So a lot of it's education and reducing fear, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking about like, oh God, I'm thinking of a million things, and I wrote things down that I still haven't talked about, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking about being a consumer, being a patient, being a client. What are some words or like keywords or things I can look for to know that I'm going to someone who's integrating the social, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, the physical, like all of it. In not like I remember going to a physical therapist for my foot. So like completely not pelvic.
Sure.
And trying to have the conversation with her. Oh, you're like, yeah, maybe pelvic.
I mean,
I'm driving to Brooklyn. That's it.
keep going.
Okay, my point is trying to have the conversation with her, like, I keep wondering if there's some emotional component to this because no one's giving me a clear answer. Like I've had surgery didn't work. Like there has to be something else going on here. And she was like, yeah, maybe. Like it almost felt like she was flattering my curiosity, but not walking along with my story.
Yeah.
So what might we look for as a consumer who wants someone who is absolutely honoring the physical body?
Yeah.
And the, like what we would call Western like perspective, allopathic care, and is like noticing the nervous system stuff and the
So one of the big things I would say is if somebody has in their profile, they use a biopsychosocial approach.
biopsychosocial.
Biopsychosocial.
Okay.
So when we talk about pain neuroscience, right? So within physical therapy, there's so many different camps of people who like have all different backgrounds of knowledge, right? I honestly probably wouldn't be here in this camp had I not experienced it myself, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying people who aren't here aren't trying to do good care and help their patients.
Totally.
They're just not as aware and trained because we don't learn this stuff in school. Honestly, we don't learn any of this in school. It's all extra. So there certainly is a lot of research in pain neuroscience. And in that, there is the discussion of the biopsychosocial approach to pain. And that means that we are really looking at everything, right? Bio is the body, the tissues themselves. Psych is the emotions, all of the thoughts we're thinking, all those feelings, right? And then social is like the context, right? Do we have support? Like, where are we? Do we have like enough money to pay for our care, right? All these things play a role in our experience of pain.
Yeah.
And pain is always both, always physical and emotional, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say that's something to look for. If somebody has that they work with TMS or neuroplastic pain. So TMS is a kind of older acronym or phrase. It refers to the work of Dr. John Sarno, who is like one of the fathers of like Mindbody pain. Have you heard of him? Yeah. So people who've trained in that framework often refer to this type of pain as TMS. That tends to like totally ignore the body. So I think that like the newer schools of thought.
That's what I mean. Like we gotta have that.
We have to have both. We have to have both. It's always both, right? And I think anyone who's trained in like pain neuroscience education is also a good person to look into.
Okay. All right. So good. Now I feel like the other things I wrote down, I'm not sure going back to them at this point is useful. But I might do it anyway because things like that nag at me. I just have to say, like, you had no experience in physical therapy before this experience 6 years ago, and you've like gone and trained and learned all this shit in 6 years, because that's pretty impressive.
Yes. I mean, if I'm being very honest, I went this route to heal myself.
I know, but like still that's like your body of knowledge from the perspective I'm hearing is pretty vast for a 6-year journey, especially when you were working through it on your own. So
thank you. I appreciate
I want
that.
to say that. Just a side note.
Thank you. I mean, I have to say, right, it's like it's been like a mission driven thing for me, right? It's like I wanted to help myself more than anything else. Truly, honestly, like selfish
Yeah.
journey here. And then I
Yeah.
was like, I need to do this to then help others to not have the experience I had. I don't want anyone to go through what I went through, which is being alone with this and trying to figure it out all by yourself.
Mhm.
It's it's way too hard. And it shouldn't be this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of classes. Like, I mean, when I was in PT school and then after PT school, I've taken so many courses. I looked back, I was doing my taxes and stuff, and I was like, I spent so much money on education, but
Yeah.
like, it feels so important to
Like,
me.
did you already have a like a bachelor's of science or something, and then
I
you?
did, yeah. So
Okay.
I was pre-med, and
Oh,
I
okay, that makes more
my
sense.
my undergrad degree was in neuroscience. So this is not like a new
Oh,
whole
okay. Okay,
thing
this is
for me.
making more sense. I'm like, I
Yeah.
know I'm a mom, so 6 years goes by really fast, but like, how did she do all this in 6 years?
I was a science also, to be very honest with you. I had been through a pretty similar journey with my back pain, which had happened like 4 years prior.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had kind of
Okay.
learned the same
Okay.
lesson twice,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but learned the science of it later.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's making sense.
Yeah.
Um, I was just curious, mostly personally, because I'm even feeling it now. Does sciatic nerve pain fall? Well, I mean, if you're saying like, yeah, girl, your foot pain may actually be related. So you're probably gonna tell me, yes, sciatic pain falls into this category of pelvic, something people come to you for.
And also like in the category of like mind body pain, right? Like I
Yeah.
specifically like my niche and people who I really speak to are those with pelvic pain.
Yeah.
But often they don't just have pelvic pain, right? They may
Right.
have like a burning foot or
Mhm.
like sciatica or like neck pain or like chronic
Wait,
migraines.
what do you mean a burning foot? Because that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, it's just burnt, like the joint is just burning.
I mean burning foot, like you feel like it's burning.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and like barring you getting us, but you got assessed and you kind of checked everything out and nothing is structurally wrong and there's no impingement of a nerve, we're looking at something more mind body related.
Oh my God. So I have another surgery scheduled at the end of March because it's been 3.5 years of this foot journey.
Sorry.
Surgery number one did not work. And so I was like, okay, I'm only 43, I'm almost 44, but like I don't want to not be able to go for a walk for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And so
We should
speaking
talk.
of happy to talk, what I'll say too with surgery is um it's that kind of saying where if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah, I know.
That's and like nothing against them. They're doing the best they can with the framework that they have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Framework is structural problem, structural solution. But if you already had evidence of a surgery not giving you the thing you wanted,
Mhm.
is doing it again the right move? And maybe for you it is, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I will never do that. But I think it's helpful to question what your expectations are.
Yeah,
If it feels like cost benefit, the thing for you to do. True of
yeah,
everything, any medical procedure you choose to do,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh my God, so many questions.
We can be part one for it too, you know?
And yeah, I've been to physical therapies, I've been to chiropractic, I've been to like neuromuscular tissue stuff, I've been to like woo woo, take some homeopathics. Like I've done so much and so many, like from so many perspectives. You as a consumer, you get to this place where you're like, just something has to work, right?
It's
But
awesome.
so many people are coming to this group and this call just like with these different pieces of that in their story. And yeah, what it's funny because like what I'm reminding myself now, how I'm self-coaching myself in this moment is like, do the best you can and have your own back. Do the best you can and have your own back. If you decide to have your surgery, have your own back. keep
1000%.
going, don't give up. Like,
Work I always give to everybody is, what is the most loving choice for yourself?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
What is the most loving choice for yourself? And
Yeah.
once you
Yeah.
decide you love that choice.
Oh, okay. This is reminding me of something that I didn't talk about that I did write down earlier. So, okay, we should wrap up here soon. But
Okay.
when you ask a question like that, what is the most loving choice for me? And I'm coming from my post-abortion lens here, because what happens to a lot of us is, and I somewhat gave my answer to this question, is like, have your own back and keep showing up. But
Yeah.
we ask ourselves, what's the most loving choice? What's the right thing for me to do right now with the tools that I have and the situation that I'm in? Where am I being led? What would love do? And then we make a choice. And then earlier you were talking about, like, the language that made me write it down earlier was like, you're the boss of you, like, you're the driver, you know you the best. The reason this lesson comes to me so strongly is so many people come to me and they're like, I did what I thought was the most loving choice. I did what I thought was right for me. I did, and now I think I messed up. It's like, well, it's sort of like me with my foot surgery. I'm like, I did what I thought was right, and and now I think I messed up. So I just wanted you to speak to that perspective a little. I mean, my whole body of work kind of speaks to it, but
I think it's really important to remember that, like, we're only able to make a decision in the time that we're able to make it, right? And we do that with the information that we have. And our brains love to what if us and tell us we fucked it up. Sorry if I can't swear on this.
I've already sworn multiple times, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Our brains tend to play the game of what could have gone differently. How could this have been different? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's first to acknowledge how normal that is, and how, like, especially with a big decision like that, where you feel there's a lot riding on it and we can't go back and undo it. Like, expecting that to be part of what happens is important.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that we have to decide that choice was what was best, because it's been made. It's done. Right? Like, we can't go back and change what's happened. We can change how we decide to feel about that.
Yeah.
Right? That's all the control we have. So grieving what needs to be grieved, if there's grief that's there, right? And deciding how we want to love ourselves moving forward. It's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, oh, this circles me to the other thing that I wrote down and didn't talk about. Perfect.
Okay, let's do it.
So when you have learned that you know you the best, you're the boss of you, you're the driver, make a decision from that place. And then you find yourself doubting, did I know what was best for me? Did it, right? That brings me to this other language that we had talked about later, which is like, sometimes I talk about, like, in my abortion work, I talk about, like, okay, here we are, let's birth a new you. Like, you didn't have a baby, let's birth a new you. And that's this process of, like, creating something new from where you're at. But then there's this piece of it that's like, well, you're not a new you, you're the same you, you're just, right? So, and then there's this idea of, like, restoring the you that was when you came into the world, and we're restoring you back to that. And then there's this language of, like, regenerating, which reminds me sort of what we were talking about earlier with, like, stimulating. And, like, so I just want to say, all these words are accurate. They all have a little different nuance. They all have a little different flavor. But whether we're doing that physically in the tissues, or we're doing that emotionally, spiritually, like, whatever, it's this idea of, like, whatever you need at that point. Do you need to birth something new? Do you need to restore to something old? Do you need to regenerate from what you like? Whatever. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I love that. That's a really wonderful way of thinking about things. One thing I often hear from people is, I want to go back to who I was before I had my pain. I hear that all the time. I'm sure you do too, about your clients.
Yeah.
And I think what I have learned in my own journey, and I see with my clients too, is we don't really get to go back, right? In my experience, frankly, with who I am now, don't actually want to go back.
Right.
Right? Because of how much I have changed and like, do I wish I didn't have pelvic pain? Of course, it sucked, right? The experience was not great. Would have happily skipped it and not had like that whole experience.
Yeah.
And right, because of all that and what I've learned about bodies and brains and myself and my own needs and self-advocacy and boundaries and blah, 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 I am a different person.
Yeah.
And my clients end up being different people too. Right?
Yeah.
And how can that be okay? How might that be like an even better choice for you than reverting back to those habits that weren't serving you, those ways of being that weren't really serving you, and getting you closer to you actually in this new version, whatever that means.
Yeah. Yeah. So juicy and good. And I absolutely love you. And I love that I followed my intuition to just randomly meet a stranger and invite her to record this with me. I'm really glad to add it to the library. Where can people find more of you?
Yeah, so I am at the Pelvic Pain Coach on Instagram, one word, the Pelvic Pain Coach.
A pelvic pain coach. So, if you have like a burning foot or like an itchy vagina, just go either way.
DM me, happy to chat. Really, I think the biggest take home is like, if you haven't found answers in the traditional medical system, don't lose hope. There is a lot more information that unfortunately you're probably not getting. And there is support and help, and don't suffer alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep going. Keep showing up, looking, keep believing more is possible.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to press stop very reluctantly because I want to talk about this all day, but thank you.
Thank you.